All right, folks, we are live and not live on air yet on the radio, just in this 4.5 minute prelude before the show launches. I see that Sarah, no, that's not Sarah, that's Alexandria Weiss. Is she over there? Hold on, I'm just going to bring her in for a second. Alexandria, are you there? Interesting. Okay, I don't see her. I wonder if she is going to want to be in tonight. Here, let me get my headset ready and everything ready for tonight's show. Now, the link that is that I share here, I got to turn my computer to get at the right hole in the back. Hang on here a second. I plug in my headset. Ba-boom. There we go. And let's get Alexandria. I don't know if you were out there or if you were in here by accident, but I saw you hanging in the wings. So if you want to call in, that is the let's see if I've actually got you there. Alexandria, do I have you? Alex? Calling Alex. Are you out there? We've got about a little under 3 minutes before we start the program. It's just kind of the preamble to the program. If you're not meaning to call into the studio, Alex, you can just click into the chat room, the main link for the chat room. This is the link that gets you into talk with me on air. So I don't hear you or anything going on. I don't know if you can hear me on that end, but I'm going to take you out of the studio. And if you are over in the chat room, you want to talk, just let me know. I don't see your camera. I don't hear your voice. So we do have a special guest coming on in 2 minutes tonight. Many of you know Sarah Soderlund, and she'll be joining us in a few minutes. And let me get... I told her to call in at about 10 minutes after the hour. She'll be here. Let's see. Welcome to everybody, by the way. Grumpy Stack, Matthew Sainsbury, good to see you. Field Guy, Barbie D, Leslie Holker, Remeldian, good to see you. She just got a call from Andy. He's stuck in the ditch in North Dakota and may be in there all night. Roads are closed due to the blizzards. Is it already snowing where he is in North Dakota? I know they're anticipating about 3 feet of snow in North Dakota tonight. That's part of the forecast. Is he going to be okay? He's got his phone, so does the highway patrol and everybody know he's out there? Or is there a lot of distress over there right now because of the storm going through? I see Alexandria again. I don't know if she's trying to get a hold of me. There she is. Alexandria, I see you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Okay.
I'm hearing crackling, but I don't hear you. I can't hear you. And you know what? We got about 10 seconds and we're starting, so I'm going to take you out of the window. We'll try it. Try me back. Here we go, folks. We're going to go dark for a few seconds.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad, so he can take me to Disneyland.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.
Hey folks, welcome to the program. Happy Wednesday night. This is Scotty Roberts. I'm the host, of course, of the Intrepid radio program right here on Odyssey Radio. And that's ODYSY Radio. You can go on over there, hear the audio only version of this show. It's a radio station. They broadcast radio. So you can go over there and listen to the show audibly. Or you can come on over to my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. And you can join the live video simulcast and the chat room that is inhabited by all the Intrepids. And so you come on over and join the conversation that's going on over there already. And you can also, if you go over to Facebook and you want to see it there, go to facebook.com/Odyssey Radio. And Odyssey is spelled oddly, ODYSY Radio. And you can see the same simulcast in video with a chat room over there. So I want to welcome you all to the show tonight. This is going to be a treat tonight. I have a very special guest, my dear old friend, not that she's old, but she's an old friend, is Sarah Soderlund. And we're going to be bringing her in just a few minutes. And I see another very cool impromptu guest that's coming in. I think she wanted to talk about this topic with us, and that's Alexandria Weiss. And Alexandria is an author. She shares my agent, Italia Gandolfo. And Alexandria, if you go look her up, I know she didn't call in to promote herself and her books, but since she's there, she's got several books out. And she writes some historical fiction, as well as, I don't know how you'd classify her fiction, romance, some of it, ghostly, some of it. She kind of crosses a lot of lines. And so she's got titles out there like Have You Seen Me, Dark Perception, the Corde Noir series of books, River of Ashes, Sisters of the Moon, Rival Seduction, The Night With You, That Night With You, Bound, a Magnus Blackwell novel book, number 3, Seas, Damned Realm. This is the one about Alexander the Great's wife. And so there's so many books that she has written out there, and I hope that we can get her in. I know she called in to the studio, and we've got her sitting out there. So maybe before I bring Sarah in, I'm going to try Alexandria again. We tried her in the pre-show, and we couldn't hear her. So let's give it a shot here now. Alexandria, are you there? I'm getting just a gray screen for you, and I don't hear you. I don't see or hear you. Can you see or hear me? I saw you waving during the pre-show, but I'm not seeing anything. Oh, there. Oh, I see you. I see you, but I can't hear you.
I'm trying. It's not
She's
working.
trying, she says, I think. So, I know she wants to contribute tonight. So, I'm not hearing you at all. There's nothing I can adjust on this end. Just check your microphone settings. Make sure your computer is picking up your microphone, and we'll try it. And so I'm going to take you out of the studio. You'll just be hanging in the wings there. If you get things going, give me a thumbs up over there. So, folks, I'm going to right now. I'm going to bring in Sarah. Sarah, you've seen her before. You know her. She used to come and do stuff with Rocky and me. She's been on this show before in the past, and I've known Sarah since I think 2009. I want to say. Might be earlier than that, but let's bring her in right now. Sarah, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. I'm glad I can
said
hear you.
old friend.
Yes,
I thought,
yes.
no, don't give our age away, Scotty. Don't do it.
I know our age. That's
Our
kind of
age.
a nice thought.
Yeah.
That
If we're gonna be
that would be the
vampires, we've got to be
same.
vampires together and not speak of such things.
There it is. There it is. So I'm glad to have you on. Every time I am in your neck of the woods, which is about a 3-hour and 15-minute drive from here,
Yeah.
we can never get connected.
I know. Well, you and I both have a really bad habit of doing things on a whim, like a nomadic gypsy. And so usually I hear that you're in my neck of the woods as you're either leaving it or in it. And
Right.
yeah. And so unfortunately I do live in a physical realm most of the time. And so I have to make
Yes.
money.
And you have to
That
work.
means
And
work.
I was
And
visiting my friend up there, but it was work too at the same time.
yeah.
And so I got up there. It was just a quick up there and back in the same day. So I spent about 6.5 hours in the car today,
Yeah.
going back and forth. And we were hoping to catch you, and I'll talk to you more about that later. I passed your numbers on to him. It's
Good.
funny. My friend Andy Dabbs, who I've spoken about before, he's the founder of Lemon Squad. He's that good friend of mine, kind of rags to riches story. Took him a long time to get there, but he's made it. And he lives up on a lake in northern Minnesota. Maybe it's more north central. And beautiful north woods up there. He lives out on the point on the lake. And Sarah, I found out when we went up there the first time to see Andy at his place, I knew Sarah lived up there somewhere, but she lives right down the dirt road, like
Yeah.
the same road going around the lake, on the same lake, just around the crescent of the lake.
Wow,
And,
really?
yeah.
Okay.
So it's how appropriate. I
It
mean,
is.
I go out of
Right
Andy's
there.
place and I can go out to the main road, Olson Road, I think it is.
Yep.
And I turn on Olson Road and we go down and we go around the lake part of the way where it's your place. And Andy was at his house and he says, yeah, she's over there on that side of the lake. And I'm like, wait, that's way opposite. Well, I got to figure we
It's
go all the way
big.
around the lake to
It's
get
big.
there.
It's a lot of
Yeah.
land, and right there, it's really beautiful because you have the reservation, you have the Ojibwe land, and you also have
Right.
the veterans property, and then you have the Paul Bunyan, and so you have the nature
Right.
reserve, and it's like
And it's
it's really
all
cool.
so north woodsy. It's all the tall pines and the tall trees and it's just gorgeous up there.
Yeah.
So
I feel like I can dote on it because I'm not from Minnesota, so I still
yeah.
look at it and I'm like, it's beautiful. But because I'm from Missouri, where right now they're like dodging tornadoes and it's thunderstorm weather, which I miss the
Right.
thunderstorms because now in Minnesota we're in icy mud, like big
And I
spring.
guess
But
in the Dakotas right now, just to the west of us, they're going to get like 3 feet of snow tonight. So
Speak up!
hopefully,
Stay that way.
up where you are, it's you get colder weather. It's
We
funny.
had snow
You're
like
only 3 hours
3 days
north
ago.
of us, but you get more snow. You get cold more than we do.
Yeah.
So you're just on that right path. for
Right in
everything
the
to
right
come
path,
in.
man. It was 32 something just the other day, and I check in with my dad who's in Missouri, and he's like, well, it's 78 degrees here today. And I'm like, shut
Nice.
it,
Thanks,
Dad.
Dad.
It's
Thanks,
31
Dad.
here. So
Yeah.
but it is beautiful. So we'll take that.
So
take
have you ever lost a pet that you dearly loved?
Oh, of course, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about it's weird. As a child, you have like the childhood experiences that seem to be very memorable. foundation for like what it
Mhm.
is that's going to be like. I remember flushing some creatures, burying some creatures that I maybe didn't necessarily care about. I do remember trying to kill my
Sure.
sister's cat because it was a horrible, evil cat.
Well,
And I was young, and that was another time. But like, we lived on a farm space growing up, so there was a lot of like slaughtering animals and
sure.
processing animals, and so death. I don't. I remember there being dying, but when our family pet died, like after I don't know, he was like 17 years. It was like the ever aging pug dog, choked on a piece of ham, as every dog should when they
Oh my.
go. But you find them there, keeled over their food bowl.
If you're gonna
Uh,
go
go
choking on
happy.
your favorite food.
Yeah. Most men, by the way, dying of cardiac issues during or after sex. So, I mean, I suppose people,
Really?
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, people are just as lucky. It's usually
What a way
biological
to go.
stress, excitement, arousal. Um,
That's right. That's right.
so, I mean, it wasn't ever that traumatic until just very recently, actually. You say that, and our first year up here, just a few years back, we had a dog. We moved on to a big property. The dog was coming and going. We were like, "Yay! We're never going to need to get a fence. I mean, how could be? It's fine. The dog's coming and going." And then got hit by a car,
Oh
and
my.
I was the one to go out looking for the dog. I saw the dog across the highway and went like, "Stay!" And I got my car over, and just as I put the car and park and then went to go reverse it on the shoulder, I looked back, and it went from being the cute little ears over the guardrail to being a darn lump in the road and having to pick it
Oh
up
my.
and throw it in the car and be like, we're, we're, and like horrific,
Yeah.
traumatic. And I work with graphic content Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And I would dare
Mhm.
say that the death of a pet and that lack of a language barrier, being able to have last words, being able to know if they're
Sure.
okay, makes it sad, exceptionally sad. So yeah,
It sure does.
so that comes to my
Well,
mind.
that's what prompts me to ask a question about this and to have you on tonight because you are a medium. You also
Mhm.
consult or counsel forensically in lots of, as you just hinted at, a lot of death situations.
Yeah.
Um, so you've got that that mediumship feel. Are you? Do you consider yourself, by the way, clairsentient? Are you clairaudient? Are you
That's a good
clairvoyant?
question.
What are you exactly? Do you know?
Do I
Well,
know?
of course you know,
Does
but
anyone know?
do I
Uh,
know?
do you know? I feel like the best answer to that is that I would say I'm an intuitive. I would consider myself extremely
Okay,
empathetic, sensitive, or intuitive. Um, my learning channel is preferred visual than audio than kinesthetic, but in my waking state, it's kind of similar to my hypnagogic state. If I'm kind of, meditating or in a
sure.
I still see things on occasion. I still hear things, clairaudient on occasion. I still have sentient feelings. I actually get a lot of the olfactory, which I think people often get, but because you don't see smells, you don't get to validate it in the same way. So you'll be like, eh, and you just blow it. You just sniffed and smelt a ghost, my friend.
Now that's
So,
interesting. Just
you know,
today, when I drove all the way up to Andy's, there was no scent in the car as I drove up. But when I walked back out to move my car because I had blocked his car in, the whole interior of my car smelt sweet,
mm,
almost too sweet. And I'd been in the car for 3 hours, and I didn't smell anything. I smelled this very sweet smell, almost candy type of sweet, but it wasn't candy. And I was looking around, did Rainey put, air scent things in here, or there was no pine trees hanging or
yeah.
anything? So I don't know what it was, but it was there, and then I went in the car again, it was gone. So we look at those things and we say those things happen quickly and
Mhm,
could be very easily explained away.
mhm,
But for there to be a sudden blast of a different kind of smell, very sweet smell, almost perfumey that I hadn't smelled before, and then for it to be gone again. So that was
I like that it
interesting.
was
Just
good. positive,
was a
like
good
these
smell.
assumptions that positive.
Yep, yep. So
Yeah.
there's, you don't know. You
No,
never know, like you
you
say.
don't know.
Those things happen, and sometimes we breeze right by those and never give them a second thought. So
Well,
I
and
want
that
to
sorry, I was gonna say
go
it's
right ahead.
discernment. It's like that. I mean, how do you know what you sniffed, what you smelled? Like what is that
Right.
to you? How do you see red the same way I see red? Like measuring that. I mean, neuroscience, we can measure, electromagnetic
Sure.
frequency. You can measure ions. We can say there's, whatever. But the subjective interpretation of it is still
Right.
pretty
Smells like
wide.
red. So
Smells like grandma's
now,
house.
I want to ask you about. Yeah, I know that smell. Um, it's like just before I go on, Christmas smell. There's a Christmas smell to me, or
Mm,
Thanksgiving to Christmas smell. That holiday, where
storms.
up here it's like pine. It's like cinnamon. It's like
Mhm.
pumpkin cinnamon. Although I'm not a big pumpkin fan, but whenever I smell that cinnamony, piney smell, something like that, you know what I'm talking about. That's that holiday smell. So that's
Mm,
olfactory memory. I get it, but
right.
so, but I
Triggering.
wanted to ask you specifically about animals and souls or spirits. What's
Mm,
your thought on this? Because I know when I was in the church, there was a lot of talk. Well, animals don't have souls, and so on. And but then you had some that believed that there was, and then you have I got into this discussion with somebody once, and I went and I looked up all this stuff once before, and I'm looking at what does the Bible say about animals in heaven. Now, I chose the Bible specifically because it latches into what so many people religiously in our culture, especially in the West, think about animals and death and so on. And I found 100 or more verses in Scripture that speak to some of them more obscure, some of them a little more dead on about how there is life in the animals, and there's something there that there's one specific here that I wanted to read for you before we went on, where it says, let's see, I got to scroll down to this particular verse. Are not two sparrows sold for a penny, and yet not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father, meaning God, apart from God knowing it, is the biblical version of that. And I always liked that particular verse when it was talking about God,
That's
even though I have my own
Matthew.
questions
Or is
about
that
God.
Luke?
That was Matthew.
Matthew.
And yep, as a matter of fact, it was Matthew. I can tell you exactly. That was Matthew. I lost the window. Hold on. It's here. That was Matthew. And of course, it's making me scroll all the way down to find it again. It's Matthew. We'll leave it there. For now, I'm going to take too much of the show just trying to find the verse I lost. So,
Well,
you
I this call this synchronicity. Call this
okay?
synchronicity. Talk about Templars, really cool alchemy in my own occult research because, you guys, if I am paranormal Sarah. Monday through Friday, I'm
Paranormal
doing
Sarah.
forensic counseling. But
Yes.
in my other research, occult, end of life, spiritualism, things like that. I love doing scripture, and neurolinguistic programming is especially one of my favorites. And so recently talking about copper and bronze and how you have the solemn pillars, the pillars, one is J, one is B. You see it in the high priestess card on your tarot deck, and in a Templar, like you're walking through the two pillars. These two pillars also in Egypt made of like copper, and one is zinc, and they're like the
Mm-hmm.
prophet, the Egyptian prophet, and how we levitate, and like all this kind of wild conspiracy, crazy,
Oh boy.
cool quantum physics stuff.
Sure.
In the Bible, if you go to like where are there references to copper and coins, in my brain I was like, it's either Luke or Matthew because in this space, if I remember right, in the sparrows, You have all these birds in the sky. You have all these hairs on your head. Is a coin not silver and not copper? How do you know? And discernment of will. And like I'm thinking when you're talking about the sentience of animals, like don't be afraid to kill a body if you are just killing a body. If you have a soul associated with it, then it will be in God's hands. Is kind of how I suppose I always heard that passage.
Sure.
Keep in mind, guys, I was heavily religious as a child.
Yeah.
You're selling 2 sparrows for a penny. You can sell anything for anything. You're selling humans for that, but when you die will be God's time. Like there's no price on it. Death is not atoning value.
There's another verse that involves sparrows that it talks about a sparrow does not fall, but God is not grieved in his heart, it says. And
then Field Guy in the chat said, drop the coin, silver makes different sounds than copper.
That's true.
And that the shape, just what you're seeing, just the vessel, just the skin, just the flesh.
Mm-hmm.
What am I? This is but a passage of time. This is not important. It's the content that matters. It's
right.
Knowing that that's not bronze or silver by the sound. It's knowing that that sparrow has a soul, so therefore you wouldn't kill it. It's having an awareness of a soul that observation theory gives credence to one's existence. And I feel like the Bible says that there.
I mentioned last night as I was introducing the possibility of doing this topic today. I said, this is where it comes down. We used to laugh in seminary about, are you a dichotomist or a trichotomist? Meaning, are you dichotomist? Are you body and soul? Are you a trichotomist, body, soul, and spirit?
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much to the triune in nature, in the universe, and all through time.
Which one are you, by the way?
I'm a trichotomist. I believe in body, soul, and spirit. Now,
well, you also are in a mental health field. I would say you enjoy connection with people.
I do.
You're a good storyteller.
I do.
And I believe in dichotomy, and I also see the Venn diagram in it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
I get it.
I believe in both. They're both. They're just a different space and time, I think.
I couldn't deliver a dissertation on it right now, but I do. I get that, and I accept that. Now, the reason I think between the dichotomy and trichotomy is how it talks in. Now, again, keep in mind, everybody listening, and you too, Sarah, this is all, when I speak about Bible verses, this is all taking it into a religious biblical context.
Mm-hmm.
And if I speak within that context, it does not mean I don't have questions about things or that there's no validity to some other point of view, religious or spiritual. It just means that for the sake of this conversation, I've plunked myself, if you will, back into a biblical, a Judeo-Christian type of a setting. And there is, like,
I'm
if
not
you look
there.
at the, what's that?
I'm not in a Judean Christian setting.
Right. I'm not really either. I am with this particular thing I'm going to say. In the book of Genesis, it speaks of how God breathed into man the breath of life, and man became a living soul or a living spirit. I think it's a living soul. And but that man was probably body and soul. Before that, God gave him the living spirit, which differentiated him from, in a non-scientific way, in a biblical, prophetic, theological sort of way, it was showing that there was a difference between the animal man and the rest of the animal kingdom, was that God had given mankind the breath of life, the living soul, whereas the animals only possess the body and spirit. And same with humans, the body and spirit, and God made them the living soul, brought them up out of the animal kingdom. There's even in the Sumerian legends of creation, it talks about how there was primordial man, and Enki Ea came down and created primordial man, but also gave them life and made them the humans, which
Awareness.
delivered them awareness. Yes. Do animals have awareness? Is there sentience there? I asked the question last night, and it's rather flippant, but do animals have a court system where if an animal wrongs another animal, he can take him to court, and there are fines imposed and jail time and so on? Maybe they have their very rudimentary forms of that, but they haven't developed cable TV. They haven't developed automobiles. They haven't. Now, a monkey can use a stick to dig ants out of a hole, but does that make him the same kind of a creature as a human being who creates civilization and builds cities? And within those cities, you have different crafts going on and different shops and different merchants and warriors and wars. And, we know all of these things exist in a kind of a very rudimentary way in the animal kingdom. But does an animal know to create a walkie-talkie? Does an animal know to create matches so it can build a fire?
Scotty, one of the things that I love is this assumption that to grow away from nature is to be more intelligent than, or to be separate from is to be better than, or elevated. When I see that ravens use tools, or that other creatures don't have to use tools, that humans create tools that usually lead to their destruction, to their segregation, to a lack of awareness, I dare say, our tools have done to us. We could all be learning different languages and sharing our wealth and realizing just all the history. I mean, Alexandria is at our fingertips with the internet, and it's mostly being used for gaming and porn and hacking identity. I mean,
but maybe those are things all by themselves. We can label those things with moral implications, if you will. But like, I just look at my desktop here. The array of items on my desktop are things that we have created. The animal kingdom doesn't have that. They don't create coffee and then put it in a jar like this and a label. Somebody's got to design that label and print it. There's whole industries. This little jar full of markers represents about 8 different industries that all make up this one thing. And so I'm not trying to in any way degrade the animal kingdom.
No.
But that we are different kinds of animals with different. Man has that living soul, that reason that was given to them, the logic and the reason. Do animals logic and reason things out?
I believe they do.
They feel love. We can
they
see
do.
that.
Now, so then that's where we are, because you feel like, man, there's a sense of measuring worth or value with intelligence in some of those statements. Like, man, if you can use tools and you can do more than this, you're a value, and a value or worthiness of continuing to grow.
I'm not speaking of worthiness with that. That's not how I mean that. Not worthiness. I'm talking more about the ability to reason and logic, the ability to think. Humans think differently than squirrels. We're all on a different plane of existence, of ability. That the human animal is something special amongst the animal kingdom. We make clothes for ourselves. We make clothes with patterns and designs on them. We don't molt. We aren't camouflaged naturally. We have the ability to do things and make things and be inventive and things like that. So
choice, I would say free will, and maybe the awareness that we are capable of so much potential. I try and think of it in an energy space, because sometimes with, reason and logic, those are objective, those are measurable. So that's something that you can come to terms with. Whereas
no, Alexandria, she's in the chat room. She was trying to call in a little earlier. She says, yes, they have logic and reason.
Yeah, I see that in animal behavior. I mean, in what we can observe and measure, and like David in the chat, even octopus, to be able to, they can get out of traps, they can find food, they can be
Raptors
conditioned,
can open up doorknobs.
motivated. They have drive beyond instinct. Animals
Yeah.
have bonds with their person, and not just a person that is feeding and watering them, but a person that they are working with and living with and sharing space with. So I do think that we have a different purpose and way of, but I think about, like, in ethics, for example, and forensic psychology especially. Man, if I'm interrogating somebody, a human, is it okay to step on their finger? Is it okay to crank
Mm,
up the heat? Is it okay to put some infrasound in there, like some of our favorite haunted locations, and make you feel like you're going out
sure.
of your mind? Is that ethical? So
Right.
the NIH, it's gotten popular over the last few years.
Right.
The
Right.
NIH is something that, as a forensic psychologist, you kind of have to go through their training and certification on what is ethical, what is humane.
And
Um,
I understand I understand humane. And
so is it
listen,
emotional?
I don't have a set way of thinking about this. Perhaps this is like I've been talking about the last few nights, the narrative that already exists. Perhaps I'm locked into that narrative when I spew out this is what I think animal kingdom is or human kingdom is, and so on. Uh, perhaps there is a counter story to that narrative that is there. And so here's the big question then.
Mm,
If animals have these things, if they can learn, if they do have reason, we just have to be on that level of looking for it. Alexandria says she works with wildlife, that
mhm,
they can learn very quickly. Um, is that the same time? The only reason I'm asking the questions about reason, about logic,
mhm,
about is there a difference between the animal kingdom and the human kingdom? Um, how does that then transfer over into the afterlife? Are do animals have the same soul, the same spirit that a human does, or am I locked into a biblical narrative? And that's the reason I brought that up. Is that a biblical narrative only? Is that something we learn through a religion? Something that has been um, what's the word for the kind of narrative? It's a narrative that exists, and so it's something we've always we've always thought that way. And we
yeah,
don't
it's
even
just kind
think
of our
about what we think
baseline.
about.
Yeah.
So
I think that it
so
is a
that
big part of the baseline of society. I think I think society as a whole, at least a Western American society, we love our domesticated animals, but we eat beef. We
right.
kind of segregate which animals
I
have
love my cow,
souls
but I'll eat him.
based on which ones are best used for consumerism. So it's very cultural, more so than biblical, I would say, for Americans. I mean, in the French,
Excuse me.
they're eating horse quite often, but in America, at the Wild Wild West, I mean, our cowboys, we love our horses with big open spaces. You need your horse to survive, so you're not going to eat it.
But you don't need it.
And, in some Asian communities, they're farming St. Bernards because of their muscle mass and protein content for
Wow.
eating. And some
See, and
would
I
say
wouldn't eat a dog.
I
It's
would struggle to eat a dog.
unless I
Um,
was really, really, really hungry. So
right? Well, why though? Why would you struggle? That
because it's what we put onto them. It's what we say. This is a dog. This is a man's best friend.
so you
This
eat it
is
all. Don't waste it.
what's that?
So
Don't
so then
waste it.
would you just maybe not feel
Oh,
guilty if you didn't, that cow, we don't want it to die in vain, so eat all of your
see,
plate.
and is that a double standard? I would, if my dog died, I'd bury him. If my cow died, we'd eat him.
We'd eat
You
him.
know, so or you
What's
kill it
logical
to
or
eat it
reasonable
even.
with that? I think it's a resource. It's one is a resource and one is a emotional commodity, which sounds so horrible because my dog is somewhere around here in Baldur's like my buddy. But like
Yeah,
they become we humans are quite dependent creatures, maybe symbiotic, but not in a healthy way. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not always the most positive in that space because I see that animals, they can be harmful and cruel, but they do so in self-defense. They're not out like in the UFC. There's not like a squirrel UFC on Friday nights, I don't think.
Right,
They're
right.
only usually causing harm
And
if
in
they
this
have
corner.
to. Right? So they seem to be more ethical, and I feel like, if we're causing harm just because, like McDonald's, screw those boy chickens, fluff those off on the thing and smother them in a
Sure.
trash bag. But the
Yeah,
girls,
yeah.
we send those off to the chicken farm to put them in a small thing for eggs as long as we can. And, like, that's not ethical.
Right.
They have little souls. If a cow has a soul, does a chicken have a soul? Does it got to be 2 legs or 4? Because a lot of the natives around here, the Ojibwa,
Yeah.
and Cherokee, I know that I grew up with, some of it's whether it's cold-blooded or warm-blooded.
Sure. Although, and then you've seen like cold-blooded creatures like bearded dragons are very affectionate, which is interesting. You don't think of reptiles as being that way.
Right.
Leslie said she grew up on a farm and there were animals for sustenance and animals for pets. What
Well,
makes us differentiate between the two? And then, therefore, I want to get to that question. Is the same thing that makes us differentiate what is an animal I would have for a pet, what is an animal I would put on my plate? Those two different kinds of animals that we have, what leads us to believe that they have a soul afterwards, that they go on afterwards, that there is a heaven for them, like there is a heaven for us? Is it a belief we put on it? Or do we have, like right now, we can't say there's really any evidence of a heaven. There's no evidence of that. People can say, well, I died and I saw heaven. Or my uncle said he was in heaven and he died 10 years ago. But are those proofs of those things? And the same
No.
with animals. Do you think there are animals that are in the afterlife? Do they have a soul and a spirit the way humans do? What do you think?
Well, okay, so I'm going to try and get my simplest answer
All right.
without exploding into everything that I love about everything,
Sure.
is that I really do want to always try and go back to energy not dying, but transforming, moving on. And I know that animals, living beings, heartbeats, rhythms, vibration, bioelectric, meaning, purpose, the words you used, logic and reason, they have those things. I think reason is in many ways your personal opinion, kind of subjective, but logic is something that's like a domino, a cause and effect, and this and that. Animals have that, but not always the reasoning. I would agree, because to
Okay.
reason something, to go, and sit back and think, and to have the time, the luxury, the privilege to think, top of the food chain, bitches, like up here,
Right.
we have additional time. We have creation, not always good, not always bad, depending on if we can discern our intention. Animals don't always have these luxuries. They're not reasoning. They don't have the means, matter, resources for their opinions because they are surviving. They're in a different plane of existence.
Right. Right.
But I believe that when they die, their energy doesn't just die. Their energy is going to transform either into a blade of grass or a cow or something I breathe. I'm going to eat it. It'll go back to the earth. Like it will, but will it have self-awareness? Will it have in its vessel time here on earth sat around for however many times? I don't know. How much time do you think a priest spends manifesting heaven? Heaven's going to be great.
Yeah.
I'm going to heaven. We manifest it. The CIA recently even told us that this is true in certain areas. Like we manifest our reality. If we have the time
Sure.
to sit and reason about heaven and argue and toot and fart and fight and kill about it, we have created it in our minds. And that imprint will be on our little soul ether ions, nano boson particles after our flesh dies, and it carries on. If you don't think there's a heaven, your particles don't have to go into anywhere. They're still going to go somewhere. But if you don't know where, guess what? You don't know where.
So if you think there's a heaven and there really isn't, what happens to those particles? What happens to
Oh,
that soul?
heaven is just our reasoning of a positive place to go next.
You
I
think
don't
that's
think,
this side? That's this side of
yeah,
the afterlife. Not
yeah.
necessarily has anything to do with cause and effect for the other side.
No, I think it's what we've manifested our little particles to continue in our thoughts. When people come back
Okay.
and they go, I think this, and well, I think, of course you think that. Those are your thoughts, and they can really only be yours, and you always are trying to validate it, observation theory, but particles do what they want eventually. When we lose our body, it's really not going to effing matter. And judgment and a book and this and the flames and the shakes aren't really going to matter. The particles are going to go where they're going to go. I can say with certainty that they're not going to die or cease to exist. But where will they
Right.
go with logical, critical thinking? I can't say for sure, but I can reasonably say somewhere positive, somewhere better, somewhere elevated, somewhere not limited by a body. That'd be nice,
And I didn't want to so much turn this into a question
which
of
I love.
theology of
But shouldn't it
what's
be?
my what?
Shouldn't it be?
Well, it can be
Yeah.
theology. If you can, you take theology out of a question of the afterlife. Do the two coexist together? Because if you talk theology, you might be talking about no, there is a heaven, there's a hell, there's a Valhalla, there's a Nirvana, there's a happy hunting ground, there's a whatever in the afterlife.
Mm,
That's theology. That's
yeah.
theology that we create.
Belief,
Um, and we create those based on what?
faith.
Because we have evidence of them being there, because somebody told us it was so, because God himself or gods came down and visited, a goddess visited us to tell us so. I mean, where do we have those concepts from? And that's all, of course, that's that theological side of things, the theological argument of things. Um, the question I have is, do you have to have a theology to realize or understand that humans have souls and spirits, animals have souls or spirits, whichever it is? Um, do those things exist? Now you talk about particles, that this is,
Mhm.
this is whatever energy we are goes on beyond the body. I get that part. I understand that. What do you have when you remove the physical earthly incarnate body, the carnate body of a human or an animal or a squirrel or whatever it might be, and you remove that? What kind of energy is left? What's that energy? Is that energy made up of an intelligent being only for somebody that was a human being?
Mm,
Is there intelligent energy for an animal? Can an animal that maybe was your pet hamster for 8 years and the thing died and the thing never talked to you? Kind of at times you thought, oh, maybe it showed affection to me, but mostly just sat and shook in its cage. It didn't do much. It pooped. It chewed up cardboard tubes, and that was its whole life. Can that animal then all of a sudden, on the other side, might could I have an intellectual conversation with that? Hi, I'm George, your hamster. Just want to let you know I couldn't communicate with you this way in life, but I can communicate with you this way now because it's my energy now. So in other words, what are we looking at here when
oh,
an
mirror
animal
neurons.
dies? What's that?
My brain immediately goes to like mirror neurons. Like
Yeah.
it goes to awareness. I think that when your vessel dies, when your body dies, even if you're a hamster in your cage or a person on a ventilator or an elderly person that's lived 95 years and with calluses and wrinkles and scars, that your awareness goes on and you no longer are restricted by the physical body, biological things like a central nervous
Okay.
system or
Okay.
pain. And as an intuitive, like I will see animals. Like someone will be there and I'll be like, "Dang, there's like this fluffy thing running around." And I'll be like, "It's white." I can kind of see in my mind's eye, it looks like there's something in your presence. Someone will be like, oh, "That's my cat Freddie." Now, it didn't come to me like Garfield with like a narrated bubble and be like, hello, I'm Freddie. Tell her I'm here. It was 9
Right.
years ago that no, I had to see it and you had to be aware of it. And there was like, I had to be aware of it and bring it up. And I don't feel like you're going to find anything in the outside world that you can't find within yourself. You're not going to be able to see beauty in someone else that you cannot possibly have within yourself. It is a
Okay.
reflection. And so your hamster isn't going to come to you with divine intervention of the afterlife.
Uh,
He's going
No,
to come to
wait.
you with his hamster.
Are you saying that if we don't have a certain beauty within ourselves, we can't see that in another being?
Yeah, I believe that.
Do you think there are things, though, that would draw us to become more beautiful because we see something more beautiful?
I think
Is there
that
that
is,
possibility?
I think that's attraction. There's something within yourself that is recognizing. There's a recognition, there's a validation, there's a company, there's a strength in numbers and a growth. Like from one cell to a system, from a cardiac cell to your heart, and from your heart to your circulatory system, and eventually into the being that I know to be Scotty Roberts. Like the more of you there is, the more I can connect with you and learn from you.
Sure.
There's not a whole lot of a
Um,
hamster yet, but eventually
your
maybe that's
mother was a
reincarnation.
hamster and your father smelled
Others
of
smell the
elderberries.
elderberries. Yeah, maybe it's like a snowball, just rolls downhill. It's not reincarnation.
Sure,
It's not up
sure.
a mountain. It's down a hill. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know for sure.
Dave in his comedy said something about, I think things are different. The afterlife is not the way Christians describe it. Now, I do recall on at least two separate, distinct occasions that I had a psychic medium, not you, sorry. You've
What? You have
connected with
others?
other things. You have other psychic mediums? You've
What was the
connected
other
with other
one?
things for me, but there were two distinct ones that brought forward somebody. And one was the Perrys, Michael and Marty Perry,
Oh,
who
I
you
love
know.
them. Yes, I love
Um, and the other one was somebody you might not know, a little more obscure. But they came up with somebody from my past that had passed on, that actually both of these people both said the same thing. It's not like we thought it was going to be over here.
them.
Which means they recognize there that they are in a place. They recognize, none of them called it a heaven, but they said it's not what we thought it was going to be.
Thank
It's
God.
something different.
Something
And
bigger and
which means
better.
they recognize what they used to believe or adhere to during the life. So,
I think about
as
when
be
you're wanting to be in high school and you're looking at the seniors graduating, you're in 5th grade watching them walk down, you're sending them off to the basketball. Wow, they're so big, they're so cool, I can't wait. Then you get there and you're like, it's not that big of a deal. And then when you're not there
right.
anymore, you're like, I wish I could. I mean, you can remember, but you can't. But it's different. It's always different than what you
Yeah,
thought it would be.
always different.
I like that there's some
Listen, we're
consistency.
coming up. We got about
Oh,
what is
quick
about 3
seconds.
minutes left. 3
Second.
minutes left. But we
Yeah.
always have the after show. The listeners of this show were tasked with finding a name for the after hours show, and they've dubbed it the Captain's Cabin. Arr.
Ooh.
So you can stick around here in the Captain's Cabin
I will.
after the show ends in
Happen.
about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And maybe we can talk a little bit. We sometimes go 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 3 hours with Dave Potter. So just hang around until the end, and you can take off whenever you have to take off. So I say we got a little less than 3 minutes to go here. What would be your definitive short answer if I were to ask you, because you are more in contact with the other side than I've ever been? What is your take? Yes or no? Simple answer. Do animals exist in the afterlife? Do they pass on the same way a human does?
They exist in the afterlife, but not in the same way a human does. A human does it as a human does. The death is that way for them. Death is that way for them. And if I knew then what I knew now, we wouldn't be where we are. It's kind of the
Okay.
Beetlejuice way. But yeah,
No.
I do think they're there in the afterlife, but it's different.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. All right.
So yes, the Rainbow Bridge is there. You will see.
The Rainbow Bridge.
Yeah, I'll
Where
see
did that term
Pugsley.
come from? Because I saw that all over the place
Pink
when I was
Floyd.
looking at this today.
I'm kidding. I think it's the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, the chakra, the energy, the electromagnetic spectrum, and that animals know more than we do.
Why aren't there so many songs about rainbows? And what's on the other side?
Oh, it's not easy.
I just
being
heard that on the
green.
radio coming home today.
It's
I hadn't
beautiful.
heard that song in 25 years.
beautiful.
Rainbows are visions. They're only illusions. Rainbows have nothing to hide.
Yeah.
So
Willie Nelson does a great version.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I'm really
we're
glad you
coming
had
up.
me on tonight.
I'm really
because
glad you came on tonight.
It's a good topic, and emotional creature or food, we use them, we need them, we love them, and I think
Yes.
that they go on with us to the other side. We don't have to be buried with them like the Egyptians, but they'll be there
Yeah,
nonetheless.
I think you're right.
All right. Well, thank you, Scotty.
All
I'll
right.
stay here for the
Well,
after chat, but anyone else can
all
find
right.
me online. Just
Okay.
Google Paranormal Sarah.
All right. I'm going to take you out of the studio for a minute, but you'll still be there in the background. All right, folks. I don't know if we really got to any answers more than just discussing it live on the radio show. Alexandria Weiss, I am so sorry we could not get your connection to work. I would love to have you on. Anyway, sometime we'll talk about that maybe tomorrow. And so, folks, for now, we got to get out of here. You stick around for the captain's cabin. Live long and prosper.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.
Wow, that went way too fast today. Here, I'm going to bring Sarah back in right now. There you go. And I am going to end our connection. There's something every damn night I do this show. I got to punch so many buttons. And I actually went over and I punched the button to connect us to the live stream for the radio.
I didn't.
And I looked at it at about 8 or 9 minutes in and it wasn't on.
So
I was not, for about the first 9 minutes of the show, I was not connected to the radio stream, even though we were broadcasting here. So there's always something. There's always something like that.
There's always something. Last night I did my first. I've been struggling to get the timing right and the stuff right, and Audacity keeps screwing my shit. And I'm so sad with Rocky because I'm like finally heard from Rocky after years and like get the show going. I'm so excited and get all the stuff going. And out of the middle of nowhere, StreamYard, they sent out a thing last night because I was done with the show. Everything was great. And I'm like, oh, wow, 51 minutes. Like everything's perfect. Like everything's great. I went to go do just the normal drop down, download audio. It's like, sorry, audio at this time is not available. All of our storage has been compromised. Sorry for any inconvenience this may cause. And I was like, what? Because of all the solar
after
flares.
you did the show.
After I did the show, of course. Always after. And so then it was like, well, now I got to go to YouTube and extract it. And there's always something.
Yep. Always
So
something.
I get it. There's always something. I don't even care anymore.
You entertain people for a minute? I actually have to pee.
Okay.
So I'll be right back.
Well, is this live?
Yeah.
Is this on? Oh, great.
We're live on YouTube right now.
We're live on YouTube. Good. Well, don't pick my nose. Well, every Scandinavian would be so ashamed of me. I'm not Scandinavian. I just live in Scandinavia, and I'm married to a Scandinavian. Y'all, don't you know the Soderlund? And the Rainbow Bridge. Someone and in the chat had said it's Asgard. It's the what do they call it in the darn Bifrost? The concept for the pet Rainbow Bridge could have been the Bifrost in Norse mythology, Norse Midgard. I was just talking about the serpent worm because of the Watch the Water documentary. But I Googled it because I'm a Virgo and I always need, I use the N word, need to know. And apparently it is Beautiful Joe's Paradise. And it is a poem by Margaret Marshall Sanders out of Joe's book of Paradise. And it is in 1980 something. And this poem mentions the Rainbow Bridge in a beautiful marshy meadow. And so that is maybe where we really did get that. And I don't know if I believe that or not, but I'll take it.
No,
I'll take it.
works. It works.
It may not be the Bifrost. It might just be the book by Joe's Paradise book. Could be either, could be or, could be cake, could not be. We don't know.
Sure.
Leslie says, yes, we are watching you. Man, I just saw that too. That's good to know. Otherwise, I would have
What'd you
thought
see?
I didn't know if when you got up and walked out, I didn't really know if I was live or not.
Sorry, I didn't mean to leave you hanging there. I
I
thought
was like, maybe he's kidding.
no.
Maybe he's just going to see what I do, and this is a trick.
And you're just talking. I'm just standing over here in the wings, just watching you talk to nobody.
I do it all day long. I'm telling you. So yeah, Bifrost. Somebody had said it's the Bifrost, and I was like, oh, it could be the Bifrost and not Pink Floyd, but the Bifrost doesn't really mention animals going over it. It's more that's electromagnetic spectrum time travel. We're talking time travel, Scotty. Is the Rainbow Bridge.
Time travel. Explain that one. How do you mean time travel?
Well, the electromagnetic spectrum is made up of an array of types of energy, all different types of energy, all different types. And the visible light spectrum, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, that aligns with our median of our body, and everything is vibrating, and we're vibrating it just the right way that we are seeing and experiencing things. And I think that the Bifrost, the red, orange, yellow, the Rainbow Bridge, and as Hollywood shows it, like this crystalline, like iridescent looking, would maybe be, I don't think it would be water, but maybe it would. It could be alchemy in that way. But that's how you travel between worlds. Kind of like, I know that this blows people's minds and I get people real upset sometimes to say that I believe both in flat earthers and modern science because I believe that the earth is a Torah, like our ionosphere, our electromagnetic, like when you see it and you see it and how it's moving this way. If you freeze frame that, it is flat. If you're looking at a donut in a 2D space, it is a circle. So when flat earthers and crazy conspiracies are like, you go in the ocean to go out into space, and you're like, that's weird. But then you're like, what happened to all the people that went down to the bottom of the ocean? There's people, man. So I work with extreme mental health veterans and crazy we get into weird areas. The teams of people that go down to the bottom of the ocean and they find liquid metal, like weird.
The seam.
And this meniscus, this blob, you can't penetrate it, and the same with the aliens, like, I've got water, and it might be coolant. Sure, it might be coolant breaking into their vest, but like
sure.
People in space experiencing water, like, I don't know. It is totally H.G. Wells. It totally is Lovecraft. It's totally science fiction, but I subscribe to it 92.7%.
Is there Vril?
Yes.
That's the big question.
Cthulhu? Yes. They're coming. They're here. Yes. All of it.
Who was it that was attributed to be the very first? They attributed to him the very first science fiction author.
The guy who did Blade Runner?
No, it was in the early 1800s. What the heck was his name? He wrote about the secret of Vril, and it was an underground, cavernous place that had a civilization like an Atlantis in it.
Vern.
Vril was their power source. What was that?
I'm thinking of, man, I'm really bad with names. Someone in the chat room, help us. Help us.
Think of his name now.
We're going to find it.
Not Enoch.
Elsbrog de Camp. De Camp.
uh,
Elsbrog de Camp. Calls Verne the
it
world's
was one of
worst.
those very British, like almost hyphenated double last names. It's right on the tip of my tongue. What the hell?
Jules Verne. It's not Jules Verne.
No, it was pre-Jules Verne even. Um,
Edward Bulwer. No, I don't recognize him.
Bulwer Lytton.
Bulwer Lytton?
Lytton.
The person I don't recognize. The Coming Race.
The Coming Race was his book. It was published
PSI
in
powers.
May of 1871, and considered by many literary circles to be the first science fiction novel. I guess there's all these earmarks or these criteria. Bulwer Lytton, though, yes, that's the guy. And so, all of that just because I said the word vril.
Well,
Who
I
is
think
that
all of
author?
those, they all talk about parallel universes and amazing
They
things
do.
beyond their time. And I'm telling you, I feel like these men and women, they are aware of science.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's real.
Dave Potter said, as beings of energy, our true selves, we can be anywhere, any when in a thought. And that's true. I can think that I am on the other side of the universe right now. Am I physically there because I can think it? Not necessarily, but are my thoughts projected there? Yeah, I read a novel many years ago, one of the old science fiction novelists that was out there, like we all know Frank Herbert from Dune. It was that cast of science fiction writers. And he had written some novel about we had mastered the ability to travel through thinking of the space where we wanted to be. And that would project us there in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye almost. And so I thought, what a unique way. I don't remember the details of all that, but what a unique way to be able to travel somewhere. Is that an astral projection of types, maybe?
It is. It is.
So.
It is. And I put in the chat room, the crazy conspiracy. I say crazy conspiracy. I need to be careful. But some of the Information Act recently with the CIA stuff, everyone was losing their crap because the Stargate collection, right? You've got the CIA documents being released on the gateway process. What's that? It's what, some of the Bohemian Grove and Wild. You can take shrooms and get yourself out there, man. Like, can we? Oh, yeah.
Go there, man. I reach you.
Wait a minute. Can we take LSD and actually talk to aliens? You can, man. Okay, wait a minute. Let's do this.
You can, man.
You can, man.
That's the right answer.
I totally think that's how it went down. And according to the Gateway documents, that is kind of how it went down. In the heavens and Indra, there is said to be a network of pearls arranged that if you look at one, you know them all, man. And I was like, that's okay.
You know them all, man.
And this is CIA transcripts. So
wow.
It's perception and astral and do you believe you were in Egypt? And man, people John Edwards stands on a stage and says, I'm talking to your cousin Brenda. And someone goes, oh, my cousin Brenda, it's her. Yes, it is her. Is it her? How are you going to tell me? We don't know
for sure.
You can't know for sure now. By definition, you can't know. It's Schrodinger's box. And it's like, wait a minute. You're asking me, is the cat dead or alive in the box? And I can't know for sure. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
How long has the cat been in the box without you opening or giving it food, water, or oxygen? Oh, it's been in there 2 months?
It's dead. Right.
I think it just is how much information can you take in and allow yourself to process. People will be like, it's not dead. No, it's not dead. It's not dead. It's like
right.
But we don't know for sure.
Like Dave said, he brought up something here, and I've thought about this many times. There's ancient cave paintings from primordial man of aliens, or what we think are aliens, what look like aliens, something very alien to the rest of the men that they paint on those caves. And so the question is, are they depicting things they actually saw, or are they doing like what I do? I draw pictures and tell stories. Did some storyteller of the tribe throw that up there and go, and there was this giant being from the gods, that came to scare all the children. You'd see them scattering, and he draws this in his cave painting because it's a story. Or are all cave paintings meant to be taken as this is the literal history of this tribe? Could it be a literal history? Could it be just a literal history of their own literature in the form that they reproduced literature as a cave painting?
I think it's funny how separate and different we always think we are from our ancestors.
Yeah. We're really not. We just have different tools now.
I think some of those cave paintings are art. I think some of them are bullshit. I think some of them are probably exactly what people are seeing. And so the fact that you see similar things, alien things, electricity things, in all cultures.
Like, what's the thing with the big bubble around its head? And it's
Right.
8 feet tall compared to the small people on there.
Right?
And
Looks
you know,
like an
what
end
is
of the
that?
world. It looks like a damn Cthulhu, Scotty. I think it might be.
It
It's a
does.
sentient octopus, large-headed creature with a brain that's really big.
Yeah. And is that invented, or is that a depiction of something he saw or
It's a
encountered?
gray.
That's the big question.
That's what people think,
We
but
don't
no,
know.
grays are small. Yeah, we don't know. And we never will know for sure.
No.
So that's
Unless that same creature visited us and we could make the visual comparison and go, aha, maybe this is what my ancient ancestors saw
yeah.
40,000 years ago.
It's kind of that same awareness that I get in maturity. Like, it's really difficult to measure maturity. But when you tell someone, like, do you understand that no can actually mean yes?
Yep.
I think to some, it maybe, and I have many different little whimsical tools that I use in psychology that, like, if you can tell me how no means yes and yes means no, there's a certain level of maturity around consent and permission that we can talk about. But if you really think that no means no all the time and always, and you're a Sith, I cannot reason with you. I cannot.
And not to be this way just to be this way, but don't stop doesn't always mean stop.
Stop.
Or don't
No,
stop doesn't
don't.
mean
Don't.
yeah.
No, stop.
No,
No.
don't. So
Context, order, so many
Yep.
things that you go, well, they said stop. Yeah, but that's not always what that means. Well, but
That's
at
right.
some point, things do have to mean something, don't they? And it's like, that's, I think, scribbles in the wall, hieroglyphics, ancient symbols. At some point, a wink or a smile at a very basic level is going to mean something. And if we have to get on a basic level to talk about things, then it's like, then we will never know the other end of the spectrum if we're here all the time. We have to be able to
Right.
reason and go outside of our logic, and that is scary. And you may not know, you may have to say, I don't know. That's kind of always hard for me sometimes to reason with people, because I might have to say, hell, I don't know. And I don't want to sound stupid. I don't want to be judged.
Right.
Don't
Don't judge me.
Don't judge me. I don't want to sound stupid. I don't want to, because there's a snapshot where people want to judge you based on a moment. Because Paula Deen said one word 17 years ago, she must be that person now. But we don't think that of our ancestors. Like, man, they were
No.
out turning better.
We don't even think that of ourselves.
We don't even think that of ourselves.
You look at yourself, the things that we criticize people for, say politically or socially or whatever. Well, they said 18 years ago that this, And we look back at our own selves and we go, man, there's almost nothing I said 18 years ago made sense.
right?
You know, I
In the
have
last 4
developed and
years.
evolved since then. Yeah.
Would you be doing this A, B, C, or D? And you say, man, 3 years ago, you look at your Facebook memories and it's like, man, my biggest
Yeah.
concern today is that it's like, man, just wait. Just
Even
wait.
my writing style. I look at the way I wrote things. Now, the books were a little different, but even the way I socially wrote back 8 years ago, if I look at a post from Facebook, I go, wow, what's with my syntax and my sentence structure? You know, because I write differently now, or there's mild differences, things like that. So
Mhm.
interesting.
We change, and God, I mean, I often am using like this formula when I'm doing mental health work, but I also use this
Mhm.
formula when I'm doing occult work. And when I think of my thoughts, my feelings, and what I say and what I do, this is a moving thing.
Hold that up a little higher. My banner here is covering it up. EWAF.
Yeah, the earth, water, air, fire.
Okay.
And I really use this in kind of a system of like, they need to be balanced, they need to be cohesive, and they're always regulating, they're always moving. You think, you feel, you think, you feel, you think, you feel, you think, you feel until you go, you know what? I will be a comedian. I think I'm going to be a
Yes.
comedian. And then you tell someone and they go, that's stupid. Oh, wait, maybe I didn't think that through. And it kicks,
Yeah.
it kicks you back until eventually you do something.
Sure.
Or maybe you
Sure.
just do something without thinking. But this works in a way that I see the cohesiveness with my thoughts and my actions, and I try and decide if I'm being introverted or extroverted. And I think reasoning and logic, they go together. You have to do both and be both. And I think astral travel, you have to be willing to step out of your body. Can you do that? Can you still have awareness and not be in your body? It's all sorts of weird, like, man,
I
there's
would think
weird
there
stuff
for me,
happening
there
right
would be a
now.
little bit of a fear. I'd love the adventure of it. I'd love to try it. I'd love to learn how to do that, but there would be the fear of, if I step out of my body, will I be able to step back in?
Ah, the silver
Am I
cord,
stuck
yes.
out here?
Are you stuck?
By the way, June Shasta over in the chat room said, "I'm glad my ancestors said yes instead of no."
Right. And that was a beautiful thing.
Damn
I love she
Skippy
said that, right? I'm glad when someone told them, "Hey, keep it down." My ancestors
that they
said,
didn't.
"How about no?"
That's right. That's
You
right.
know, in a smart way, of course. Um,
Yes.
Dave, things I said in my youth, I can't say now without being canceled. That's
Yeah.
interesting. I heard Leonard Nimoy, Spock, said in a documentary that Pharaoh Thutmose saw fiery rings in the sky during his 22nd reign, and it was recorded in the Thule Papyrus. Oh, I wouldn't be surprised. I really
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised. And then David said, "Yeah, the silver cord." I love the reference to the silver cord and being tied to your physical body.
Mhm.
There's in other places the fates are holding a red cord, like it would be your root chakra, but the silver cord being your crown chakra or your umbilical cord, and how it goes from red at birth to silver when it's ready to be cut. And like
Right.
the color coordination, and then also that like an old person, when you see a beautiful baby and you go, "Oh, come here," and you kiss them on the forehead. I love when you ask someone like in hypnosis, where are you connected in your heart or in your gut? Like your intuition, your spirit seems to
Mhm.
come from the
Mhm.
solar plexus place, like, or here, like your crown. It's kind of cool.
Right. Oh.
Um,
Leslie said good night. Good night, Leslie.
Good night.
A little freer in the after show to be able to communicate with the chat room as opposed to just make mentions.
Right.
So, um, she's off to sleep.
I feel strange, said someone. Someone says, "Man, I'm an old person. I got to get to bed." You're not that old.
Yeah.
At the time of passing, the cord is cut. Yeah, which is why, if people, and I know that I think Masons do this. I'm pretty sure they do. The achete, the ashet, the dagger, the blade.
The Athame.
Athame,
Athame.
the blade.
Hi, beautiful.
I love having, I use old envelope openers. When I go antiquing, old
Yeah.
school envelope openers, because they're always so like really cool. They're adorned with cool
Yeah.
shit, and you can
Yep.
keep them out, and the kids don't, stab each other with them.
Okay.
But to cut cords. Also,
Oh,
in
yep.
Nuremberg and Switzerland, people saw orbs
Yep.
in the
I
sky
can do that.
engaged in combat there. Yes, orbs in the sky. One morning, our 4-year-old told us she flew so far with the angels last night. I didn't think she was going to be able to find my way back home, but I just followed the silver cord. That would freak me out.
That would freak me out too if one of my kids said that.
I'd be like, please always follow the silver cord. That's really, and you know what? One of our mutual friends, April Slaughter, she was
Yeah.
sharing a scary story with me about a silver cord and like being able in some of her boxes and spirit boxes and trans communications that she does, that
Hmm.
people had passed over recently or there at the location at the hotel, and the ambulance is there, resuscitating someone, and the spirit box, you can hear their voice coming through
Wow.
the spirit box saying, I'm right here, I'll be right back. And it was like,
I'll be right back. Wow.
what?
That's
Freak me
freaky.
out. It would freak me out. And because I know April and I believe April,
Hmm.
the way she said it to me, I was like, oh my gosh, that would freak me out. And I don't know,
Yes.
just that
There was something with April Slaughter. She called me up one night back in, this has got to be 2009 or 10. And well, let's see. It's when Rainey and I first moved out to the ranch. So 2009 to 2010. And she called me up out of the blue and she said, I was doing um, a box session tonight. And she said, the voice came out and said, now we were talking in those days, we were talking Frank's box.
right.
Remember the Frank's box?
Yeah, with his
And
yeah.
so she was doing a box and she said, my box told me to call you and tell you to call Christopher Moon and have him do a box reading for you. Now, I thought, first of all, the secondhand nature of that was very interesting. She said my box, and of course I joked with her about it for a minute there. Oh, your box told you to call me? What's up? Ho, ho, ho. And we got over the laugh of that, and she said that her box, the voice that came out of it said, call Scotty. Tell him to call Chris Moon.
That's did you?
Chris Moon to do a reading for. Now, do you know Chris Moon?
Yeah.
Christopher Moon. So now April and Christopher were at odds. I don't know if they still are. They were that back then. And so she said, we don't talk to each other. They had some animosities about something. And so I called up Chris Moon. And she said, Scotty, that's all I got. I'm sorry. And okay. And so I called Chris Moon up. And I said, April Slaughter called me. And she said that her box told me to call you and have you do a reading for me with your box. And we got our guy chuckles out of that, of course. And so he got serious. He said, let me call you back in a few minutes and I'll get set up. And he got his box out and I could hear the box in the background as he was talking to me. I said, so what's up? And he just starts asking questions. I can't remember the name of the familiar that he had associated with that box, but it was giving answers and I was hearing it and it was telling me all sorts of things about people in my circle that were, and it wasn't this clear, it was bits and pieces of this. People in my circle, betrayal, artifice, falsehood, beware of this person, and all kinds of things like that. And then that was also the night that when he was kind of done, Chris said, I'm getting the feeling, it might have come from the box. He says, you're going to have a visitation tonight. He says, so be prepared for that. I
Man,
was like,
Philip experiment. Do you feel like that was a lot of suggestion, or did you feel like it was validation?
it was validation. I knew exactly what the box was talking about and about whom it was talking about with the betrayal and all of that stuff. It fit a situation I was in the midst of. So we had April Slaughter calling me saying her box said for me to call Chris, whose box told me all this stuff.
That's crazy.
Then,
I wonder if her
now
box
we
was-
had a fire in the house. I don't know if you remember that. It was the
Yeah.
ranch house. We had a fire, it burned out the front wall, and that was all covered up, and there was still smoke in the house, and that we were trying to diminish and clean things up. And so Rainey had gone to stay with her mom. This is before Flynn wasn't even born yet. My older kids were still at the house, and they went to stay with their mom. And so I'm in the house all alone. Little corner lamps were glowing. The whole house was kind of glowing that yellowy orange tint without a filter. It was just because of the latent smoke still in the air and things. And so I went to bed after talking to Chris about 12:30 at night, and every hour on the hour, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and eventually 6 o'clock when I woke up, something woke me up. And I'd get up, and now I'm in the house all alone. I'd get up and go out into the main room of the house, and I'd look around. I'd be standing out there in my undies, and I'm like, somebody wake me up? Somebody need to talk to me? And of course, I was freaky. I was psychologically, I was freaked out already. But, you're showing some bravado. And it was about the 4 o'clock hour that I was woken up, and I saw two little girls standing at the foot of my bed. And they were both wearing...
Sorry.
Yeah. Thank you.
What did they look like?
They had blonde, scraggly hair like it had never been washed. They were wearing kind of burlappy looking, like sacks, burlap sacks with a hole cut for the head and sleeves, and ropes for belts. Both of them. One was older than the other. They looked like they were maybe 7 and 4. And they were at the foot of my bed. And it wasn't as weird as the twin girls down the hallway at the Oversight Hotel. Yeah. So they're at the bed, and then I sit up and they're gone, and I'm thinking, did I dream that?
I don't like
And
visiting in my sleep. Don't visit me in my sleep.
What was that?
I don't like stuff visiting me in my sleep.
So I sit up right away. Well, then I went back to sleep for about another hour, and I got up. It was interesting. My daughters came by in the morning, Abby and Bryn, to pick up some books they needed for school because they were staying with their moms. And they both told me, I had this freaky dream about you last night. And Abby starts crying. She says, it was really freaky. I got to tell you about it later. We got to go to school. And so now Sam's about 6 years old at this time too. So a couple of weeks later, it was a couple of weeks at least, my daughter said, we never told you those dreams that we had. Now, I think you know Abby and Bryn. I don't know if you know them personally. You know who they are. I don't know how well you know them, but they don't make shit up. They're not maker-uppers of shit. And I said, what was this dream? And Bryn said, or Abby said, I had this dream that we went down I was going down in the basement of the ranch house. And now, mind you, they had not heard my story of seeing these two little girls. This is the same night that she had her dream. And she said, Sam went into the back room of the basement, which was kind of finished but unfinished. And she said, I went down there, and he's in the corner, and there's a big demon blocking his
Oh
way.
no.
She said, blocking his way from coming out to me. She said, I just kind of reached around the demon way to the side, and I grabbed Sam, and I pull him out of there, and we go walking up the stairway. And she says, and I look back down the stairs. She says, and a little girl comes out of the back room. The demon had transformed into this little girl, and she said she was blonde, scraggly hair, and she had kind of this burlappy thing with a rope belt. And she said something like, I just wanted to play with Sam. And now this is exactly how those little girls are dressed. Now, there was only one of them. And then Abby's dream, that was Bryn's dream. Abby's dream was, said, I went upstairs to Sam's room, and standing in the entryway to his doorway to his room, there was this elegant looking man. Think Wuthering Heights, all of those Bronte novels, that era of a guy with kind of long brown hair, not pulled back in a queue, but just hanging loose. And he had on the open ruffly shirt with the like riding jacket and the tight breeches and the knee-high leather boots. Only he had no eyes. They were blacked out. And she said, he's standing in Sam's doorway and says, this one's mine. And that's the dreams they had that same night. That I have the dream of the two little girls at the foot of the bed. And I don't even know if it was a dream. I think it was a vision of these two little girls. So, I mean, that is, I don't know what segued me into that, telling that story, but dreams. Oh, the box, the whole box communication is what that all came out of. And Chris had said, you're going to get a visitation tonight.
Chris
not
is a
only did
harbinger,
I-
though. Chris, you know I mean well when I say that.
Yeah.
But he does necromancy work like I do, and so
Yes.
and you do, and April does, and all of us in that realm. So when someone in that corner is like, "Hey, you talk to Mike? No, you talk to John." It's like, if you guys are all in the same motorcycle gang, you kind of know it's going to be about motorcycles, and you know it's going to be. But Chris Moon kind of has that way too. Like when you were like, "Yeah, Chris Moon," it's like, oh. Anytime that I've ever been associated with anything, weird shit goes down. But people say the same thing about me, so that's fine.
I love Chris Moon. We haven't played together or gotten together or hung out for 10 years.
I know, but he also doesn't age.
No, he doesn't. We've talked a couple of times, just in passing, Facebook type of thing. But yeah.
Yeah, I do. I need to get myself a Frank's box. Frank has passed now, so they're kind of selective and special. I know April has many of them in her private
I've got
collection.
an original Frank's box that he made for me.
I had one at one point in my possession, and I didn't sell it. I don't know if it was an auction. I can't remember. It was at Old South Pittsburgh Hospital, and I went with the box, and I didn't come back with the box.
Oh.
And it's a coveted item.
I hate that.
Like, I also had a Geiger counter that no one had signed. It was my Geiger counter that I used personally, and I used it at Mansfield. And I ended up taking it with me from Mansfield to Waverly Hills with Father Andrew. And it was the last time that Father Andrew and I were together. And I asked him for his autograph, and we didn't have a piece of paper. And I told him I wanted to do like a graphology report for him. And so he signed my Geiger counter. And then my Geiger counter's battery exploded acid all over the entire thing, and I had to throw it in the trash. Wow. And I was so pissed because autographs are something special. A person's handwritten.
Wow.
Like my dad leaves me notes, and I always take them because I'm like, this might be the last note he ever writes me.
Right.
I get weird about that kind of stuff, and the Frank's box is one of those, like, I get sentimental about it because I'm like, dang, I want to own one, but I don't.
It's funny.
I do, but
for all these years that I've had the Frank's box, I got that. I think April Slaughter was very instrumental in me getting that way back in, oh my God, 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
Not long before Frank passed away, a year or two. But I got that Frank's box. I never really used it. I hooked it up a couple times. It seemed awkward, and all of his stuff, he had, wood burned the instructions into the wood, volume and all of this and the little switches. It was all hand done. And Rainey and I took that to the Water Street Inn in Stillwater with us back in November of 2020 when we stayed there and we got the woman singing to us. But not through the box. She didn't sing through the box. She was singing in the room.
Just audible.
I don't know if you heard that when I put that up. I posted that.
Or I probably did if you posted it, but I can't
We were
remember now.
we were doing a little ghost hunting, and the place was empty, COVID empty, because Stillwater was all closed down. None of the restaurants and bars were open. The hotel was pretty much closed down. They had one other person staying in the hotel that night. And then me. It was my birthday, and Rainey took me there, and we did a little ghost hunting. They allowed us. They told us we could. She did massage out of there, so they knew her. And she saw in one of the 1890s rooms a woman in a big dress and leaning over and whispering in her ear.
Wow.
And she said she felt like the woman was asking her to ask me to sing a verse of Loch Lomond for her. You take the high road, I'll take the low road, and I'll be in Scotland afore you. And so I sang it, and we turned on the recorders, and we said, if you'd like to sing for us now, can you do that? And we got nothing. And I kept asking, would you like to sing for us? We'd love to hear you sing. We didn't pick anything up. Well, we ended up going to bed. About after 3 a.m, at some point, Rainey sits up, and we're in a totally black bedroom. And she sits up, and she said, do you hear that? And she thought she was hearing a band, like you hear a car playing a stereo late at night outside your window kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we went out there. There's no cars. There's no music in the hallway. There's nothing. The city's on lockdown. And then I start hearing it. And I just all I did was I took my phone and I turned it on video and recorded it. And I've still got it. But what you could hear, you couldn't make out a tune. You couldn't make out any words. It was so deeply embedded. But it was saying, it sounded like, it's just this little, and I sent it to somebody who was in the paranormal world, just somebody I trust who does investigations, and I said, tell me what you hear on this piece of video. I didn't tell him what was there. And the next day he got back to me, he says, I didn't hear a lot. He says, but really embedded in there, he says, I could hear a woman singing. It was like a ballad, but I couldn't make out the words. That's exactly what I heard. So I've still got those clips, so I'll have to send those to you.
Just send them to me. Singing is so powerful, and it's one of those, man, if I'm on an investigation, and I'll be honest, a lot of times I feel awkward doing is someone out there? Knock 3 times.
Feeling if you want me.
Yes. I feel like it's, make a light switch go if you're here. I just don't. But
right.
I have gotten the most amazing activity when sitting calmly and singing, like David Potter.
Yeah.
If you're still in the chat, he and I were investigating a very haunted building in downtown St. Paul. I can't remember now the name of it, but sitting in an open room, and everyone had gone outside to smoke, and singing like Amazing Grace, and then suddenly hearing,
Yep.
I mean, like, hello? Someone there? Like, and it's like, hello? It's like stuff happens around singing. I don't know if it's invocation.
I've gotten more stuff when I've sung too.
Mantra. So. What do you think? Vibration? Pleasing?
They recognize it. It could be they don't hear a lot of singing, and they're reminded. So that's what I thought. I sang in a couple of locations, and I don't always think of doing that. Yeah. You're always like, is there somebody here with us?
Right.
you know, and rather than
Can you
saying,
hear me?
"Can you hear my voice? If you can hear my voice, can you touch this box?
Grab
And
Sheila over here, please. No, I
grab
mean,
grab Sheila, make her know you're here."
and yeah, and it just doesn't. But in Gettysburg, Covered
Yep.
Bridge, just sitting there doing like a Civil War song. Like I remember, I think in the airport layover, I
Wow.
learned a Civil War song because I was like, dang, this is either going to be the wrong song or the right song to sing. Well, I guess we'll see what if it does anything. But it sure did. It sure
Um,
did.
that reminds me of being at old Fort William Henry in upstate New York. It's all reconstructed now, except for the fireplace on the base floor and part of the concrete or the stone floor, because it had been burned to the ground by the French and Indian War. It's if you've seen the Daniel Day-Lewis Last of the Mohicans, when they're crossing the river and they're down in the water and they're bringing the canoes across and the fort's being bombarded, that's Fort William Henry. And so we're at Fort William Henry, and it wasn't singing, but it was latching into something that somebody who was there, who maybe died there, might have recognized. And because we were part of the 42nd Royal Highlanders, and we portrayed 1759, French and Indian War, I called out some orders in that would have been used by the Royal Highland Scots, the 42nd Regiment of the British Army. And I called out some orders like, on your left foot, do this and do that. And we heard voices, and we were just doing EVP tests. And with a crowd of people, 20 people around me. And then we played it back, and you could hear voices talking. He said, let's try this. And I asked, I said, can you tell me what your name is? How old are you? What's your position in the army? And so on, some questions like that. And and I gave out a couple of orders on your left foot, about face. And so we played it back, and we get the answers coming back after I gave an order. It said, "Are you my captain?" And then another one that said, it was answering the name, and I don't remember the name. We only got the first name. Then we got, when we asked about his rank, he said sentry. And that's all we got out of that night. But I thought it was very
You my
interesting. Are
captain?
you my captain? When I
Wow.
gave an order. And so it was very interesting.
I love that though. Those roles, those words. It
Yes.
makes me think about, I often struggle with my ego because I don't, this is one of those like, I don't want to like this person as a spirit guide, but so much of
Yeah.
what happens here gets validated here that I kind of don't get to feel any which way about it anymore. But Nikola
Sure.
Tesla shows himself a lot to me in meditative spaces where,
Maybe
when I
so,
say,
June, by the way.
right,
Sorry, go ahead.
that I find myself saying things that, I'll say something and then my TV right behind me, I'll be like, man,
Hmm.
I just need to think in terms of energy. And then all of a sudden if you need more energy, consider chicken.
Yeah,
And then I'll go down,
synchronicity.
these synchronicities, and then I'll open a book and it'll be like today's quote: if you want to find the secret of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Nikola Tesla. And it's like,
Interesting.
it'll be him that is saying something to
Bang.
me that I, am going back and looking at. And one of his famous quotes is, if you just knew the magnificence of 3, 6, and 9, you would understand the key to the universe. And I've always, and I think most people do, we have that fetish for the key, the answer. Me as a Virgo, man, a key, that's the skeleton key. You can get into everything, But I married a musician. You commented on that
Hmm.
today, Scotty, and that
Yes. Beautiful song.
I think his language is music, and the key to the universe is a note. Is do re mi. It's a key. not a key. It's a key.
It's a key.
It's a
It's a key.
sound.
What
I
key
think
are
it's a
you singing
song.
in? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a song. It's what you say. It's, do I have your permission? Would you like
Yeah.
to speak with me? It's getting someone's will to join yours so that you can be on the same plane. And it's so magical to me that your words can matter so much.
Yes.
6 and 9. And I hate math, but the sacred geometry, and I'm not a mathematician, but I know that, people who are, they're like, oh yes, 3, 6, and 9. That's how I got through stats. It's like, well, that's not me. That
18.
is not me. But I do love the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, or the so holy you can't say it, Kadesh, 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 or the fact that you're saying something 3 times. The first, the second, the third, the past, the present, the future. I like that trifecta. I think it's how 2 things are becoming one. It's that
Yes.
process. And I like the words. So I've been trying to pay attention to singing. And I noticed someone had said that about you and I, that you and I both sing in our shows. And we do.
We do.
I like singers.
I love
like
your
when people
singing in
sing.
your shows.
I like your singing, yeah. Well, you guys, it is 45 minutes after 10.
Time to go.
Yeah, I've got children that I got to go.
I was
make
just going to
sure
say
are
the same
not-
thing. I got kids to get up at 7
They're
a.m.
probably watching. What is it? Recently, as a parent, I was told that you have to watch the Huggy Wuggy song. Have you
Huggy
heard
Wuggy
this?
song. Oh, I know what no, I'm thinking of the Higgly Wigglies, not the
So
Huggly Wugglies.
tell us about this, Sarah. What are you talking about? The Huggy Wuggy song by Poppy's Playtime. And Poppy Playtime is a game, and a PC game, but then some crazy people that like to take things off the deep end have put Huggy Wuggy, this character, like killing his parents and slicing people up and stabbing people.
The
And I work
hell?
in forensics. So now this game creature, Huggy Wuggy, is popping up on your YouTube like, hey, boys and girls, let's go stab our parents. And what?
Oh boy.
I know. So now I've got to, every time I leave my kids unsupervised for even a brief moment, I'm like, Huggy Wuggy. It's become
There's
my
always
monster, not
something.
theirs.
There's always
There's
something.
always something. So, guys.
Sarah, thanks for being with me tonight, and thanks for doing the show at the last minute I asked you. So
I love last minute stuff, impromptu, and I'm glad I was able to. Next time you're up north, next time you're in the neighborhood, let me know a few in advance, and we'll go get a hamburger and a French fry.
that sounds good.
Yeah.
And my friend's going to be getting a hold of you. So
good. And all of you out there in the chat, if I don't know you and we don't know each other, get a hold of me. They say Charlie was dangerous. Man, I don't know about Charlie either.
I don't know about Charlie either.
I know about the Rainbow game.
Yeah.
That's no good. Dang. Have you've heard about the Rainbow game, Scotty?
I have not.
Okay, guys,
Maybe
earmuffs for
Rainey
your
has,
children. Well, all the kids, I whisper because I'm scared. All the children kind of going through their puberty space, like instead of playing doctor, all the girls or boys will put on a different color shade of lipstick, and you try to see who can get the most colored rainbow on their genitals by the end of the night.
Oh, wow. Sounds like something I played in my 30s.
Right. Sounds like a game I've never played and would like to, but like I shouldn't be at middle school. So don't play the rainbow game unless you're old
Don't play the
enough.
rainbow game unless you're an adult, consenting adult.
So I love being a parent, and I'm going to go make sure they're okay. So yeah.
All right. Well,
All
you
right,
have a
guys.
good night.
You too.
I love
I'll
you,
talk to you
Sarah. I'll
later.
talk to you soon. Thanks for being on.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, guys. That's it for tonight. Believe it or not, I'm tired. I put in 6 hours on the road today, 6.5 hours, and I'm still I'm ready to lay down, I think. I'm ready to go to bed. So, good night, Sarah, and good night, June. Thanks for being here. Good to have you in here, June. I got to put on my glasses so I can see everybody. Sweet dreams, Scotty and Sarah. I'll dream of the rainbow game. Yeah. Let us know how that turns out. And Field Guy, good to see you. Michelle Canham Free. Oof, I'm a tad late, she says. Are you just getting here now? Yeah, it's we're an hour and 49 minutes in, and we're just gonna call it quits here, Ms. Michelle. Morning, morning for some of you. Well, it's 10:49, 11:49 here, and so everybody who's here, thanks for being here. If I missed anybody, I really am kind of sad that we didn't get Alexandria Weiss in here. We had her up on the screen, but her sound wasn't working. I'm not sure what that was. I'd like to get her back. She's a very prolific author down in New Orleans, and she's got some stories to tell. And so we'll see if we can get her back another time. Just a titch tardy. Yeah, there it is. All right, guys. So I'm going to take off. I'm going to go to bed. It's that time for me. And you all have a good night. And I'll talk to you tomorrow. And what else can I say other than that? So you guys, okay. Good night. We've already done the show ender. So good night. Sleep tight. Live long and prosper.